you. Good afternoon, councillors, and welcome to all members of the public joining us here in the chamber and watching the video relay to the Grand. This extraordinary meeting has been convened to consider endorsing the executive decision to proceed with a financial close for the long-term waste contract, subject to the final cost being within the value of money envelope. I take it I've got Andy Solway today, so may I welcome Councillor Andy Solway to the chamber. This is his first meeting at County Council. He has been able to attend since being elected, and welcome today. I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Phil Barrett, Jim Clark, Bryn Griffiths, David Jeffels, Janet Jefferson, Andrew Lee, Brian Marshall, John McCartney, Robert Peckham, John Ritchie, Steve Shaw-Wright. Have we any other apologies, please? Dean Butfield. And no more? Thank you very much. Any honorary aldermen today? None to welcome? Well, okay. I'm very sorry to have to announce formally to the council the death of Richard Hall, the former county councillor representing the Knaresborough electoral division from 1993 to 2009. And I also must inform you of the death of Honorary Alderman Bernard Bosomworth, who served as a county councillor for the Farley division from 1985 to 2001. His funeral will actually take place at noon on Wednesday, the 1st of October, at the St. Oswald's Church in Farley, and all are most welcome. Please could I ask members to please stand in silence of their memory. I wish to place on record our sincere thanks on behalf of the County Council for the long service given by Lord James Craythorne, KCVO, who served as a Lord Lieutenant of North Yorkshire from 1999 until earlier this month. We wish him a long and happy retirement. His successor is Barry Dodd, CBE, Chairman of the York and North Yorkshire with East Riding Local Enterprise Partnership. He is a Pro-Chancellor and Chair of Council of the University of Hull and Chair of the Hull Joint Hull-York Medical School. We wish him well in his new appointment. May I remind members that when using the microphone, simply press the large central button to speak, and when you cease to speak. Please position the microphone towards you when speaking, and if you do not, it may not hear clearly. I hope everyone's got a clearer mic today. Please note that this meeting is being filmed by our staff for relay to the Grand Meeting Room, where more members of the public are able to view the proceedings. This footage is also being uploaded retrospectively to YouTube to enable a wider audience to view the meeting. News media are also present recording today's meeting. Members will recall that the time limit for speaking on motion is 3 minutes. The green light in front of me will go on when the member speaking has 1 minute left. When the red light goes on, members should stop speaking. I will be rigorous with this timekeeping today. We have a lot of speakers and it's going to be a long meeting anyway. Thank you. Item 2, public questions. I received notice of 10 questions and statements from members of the public. Copies have been circulated throughout the chamber and the grand meeting room. Correspondence has also been received from Mr. and Mrs. Baker and Mr. Andrew Jones MP. Copies have been circulated electronically to all members in advance of this meeting, and again hard copies have been circulated throughout the chamber and the grand meeting room. I will invite each public speaker to come forward in turn. Each speaker is allowed up to 3 minutes to deliver their question or statement. The green light in front of me will come on when the speaker has 1 minute left. When the red light goes on, speaker should stop speaking immediately, and I will be stringent. After the 10th speaker has made their contribution, County Councillor Metcalfe will respond to all 10 questions. After this, any speaker wishing to ask supplementary question relating directly to their earlier contribution or to answer it may do so. That is a maximum of 1 minute is allowed for this, and only the red light will go on in front of me when that expires. May I invite the first speaker, Sir Graham Hall, to come forward to elect us to speak, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a retired, successful businessman in both the public and the private sector. I was the Chief Executive of Yorkshire Electricity Group PLC, laying down big assets, big power station at Brigg, 200 million investment, and a number of large combined heat and power schemes in the region for large customers. I was also the inaugural Chairman of Yorkshire Forward, the Regional Development Agency, for 5 years, and a non-executive director on the Court of the Bank of England for 6 years. So I know what I'm talking about, and I've got some experience of business. And I was knighted by the Queen in 2003 for services to business in Yorkshire and Humberside. I've got 6 key questions for you today in terms of what I would expect a non-exec director making a massive investment of this size before they would endorse or make a decision on it. The first question is there a strategic fit in macroeconomic terms? Have you got the economies of scale right? Is this the right size plant? Have we got adequate contingency and catastrophic planning in place? If a bomb dropped on the plant and it was out of action for 2 years, what are the arrangements for dealing with it? I wouldn't dream of having one plant for Yorkshire and Humberside in terms of supplying electricity. I'd need half a dozen, so I've got diversity of production. Have you any experience in placing large 25-year contracts? I have never entered into a 25-year contract in my life. The only one I have is my wife. And we've been married for 50 years, but 42% of marriages fail. So, have you looked to question 2 at all the viable alternative options? And is this scheme head and shoulders above all the others? Thirdly, are there any better, less risky investments for your £1.4 billion? Infrastructure, schools, roads, vital services. Question 4, is the scheme future-proof? Does it use world-class technology? Has it been properly benchmarked internationally to make sure you've got best practice? And does it take account of bang-up-to-date developments? Question 5, has there been a proper and realistic assessment of all of the scheme using all commonly accepted financial appraisal techniques? Prudent, not optimistic. And finally, question 6, do you have all your key stakeholders on board with this scheme? Central government, local MPs, MEPs, neighbours to the plant, bankers, staff, trade unions. If the answer to any one of those questions is no or don't know, then I believe you guys will be failing in your fiduciary duty if you let the scheme go through. Finally, this is a hell of a risky project from where I sit with all my experience. On a 25-year basis, you guys will be held accountable. Thank you.
I invite the second speaker, Mrs. Linda Potter, please. Oh, Miss...
Is Steve Wright second, is it?
Oh, the order's changed, has it? All right, Mrs. Steve Wright. Sorry, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Wright, Chairman of North Yorkshire Waste Action Group. We were set up to oppose incineration across North Yorkshire. We've wrongly been accused of opposing incineration for its own sake. Some, including some of your senior officers, have found it convenient to denigrate our position in this way. From the beginning, right from the start, we set out to recruit a panel of experts in finance, business, and the environment to look at the figures and all aspects of the proposal. The figures just didn't stack up in 2010, and they certainly don't now. You'll see from your papers that the net present value of the project for NYCC now stands at just 11 million, and that's over 25 years. And it's all highly speculative. Small shifts in officers' assumptions, such as a half point in inflation or a change in exchange rates, and the project becomes loss-making. You know from your own experience that everything always costs more than you think. And this doesn't even take account of the penalties for not providing enough waste. Don't forget that this is against the option of doing nothing. Everything is changing. Recycling rates, waste quantities, European legislation. We don't even know if we'll be in the EU in 4 years' time when this thing's built. There are so many proven, cleaner alternatives which would be enormously cheaper, and there's plenty of capacity to take our waste just outside the boundaries of the county. No business would invest in a project of this size with such a poor return and so many uncertainties. Why should NYCC? Especially when they have so many difficulties in meeting their responsibilities to ratepayers in terms of services. And private contractors would queue up to handle our waste for much less money and much less commitment. It's not wanted. We presented a petition from over 10,000 people opposing this scheme in 2010. Harrogate and Knaresborough councils have voted against it on several occasions. Local MPs, Andrew Jones and Nigel Adams, have been against it from day one, and all the local parish councils oppose it. The case for this project is so marginal that you should at least take their views into account. Thousands of people were so proud when this county hosted the Tour de France. That was down in part to the good work of this council. Please make us proud again and reject this proposal. We need our services. My question is, why would you want to commit to such a long-term contract when the need is doubtful because there's already overcapacity in the area? Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I can call Mrs. Linda Potter now, please.
Good afternoon, councillors. We're all aware of the need to meet the requirements of sustainability and to ensure that we do not compromise the needs of future generations. Better put my glasses on. In North Yorkshire, we have valuable resources of minerals, and when quarried, they leave behind vast areas of land incapable of food production unless this land is backfilled and restored. Land is a valuable resource, and we need more land for food production in light of the growing population. We cannot produce more land, so we need to look after the land we have and use it in a sustainable manner. We have an ever-decreasing budget in North Yorkshire, and yet more people to accommodate. Already cutbacks to essential services have on many occasions affected the most vulnerable and needy. In light of this, we need to spend what money we have wisely and on things which will be of benefit to the community you serve. This is why we question the need for a facility that is not essential and not needed by comparison to infrastructure. We desperately need infrastructure to meet the needs of thousands of new houses which will be built across North Yorkshire. We now have more than double the housing quota in Harrogate district, and I suspect this is the same in other districts. We need better roads, as our roads are overcrowded and pollution levels in some areas are dangerously high, and more than double the EU recommended levels. This could lead to hefty fines by the EU, and it'll help to many. Money spent wisely on infrastructure is needed, and priority must be given to fund important resources which will benefit the residents of North Yorkshire. More primary schools and secondary schools are needed, and it is the County Council's responsibility to provide all of these. Education is essential. These children are the future of our country. Hospitals and doctors and dentists and many other services are currently struggling to cope because of the current infrastructure is inadequate. Your decision today could make things better or worse should you decide to vote for the incinerator and spend money we cannot afford. Then you are not looking after the people's needs. The people who elected you are depending on your common sense prevailing today. Please think about the bigger picture here before you when you vote. My question is sustainability. How can members justify the actual sustainability of the incinerator, given that there will be a huge increase in HUV traffic, which will raise emissions, waste fuel with the transportation of waste? Fuel is a valuable resource which we must use in a sustainable manner. How will leaving acres of defaced land incapable of food production be sustainable and of value to future generations?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Robert Schofield, please.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Robert Schofield and I represent the Parish Councils Group. We've followed the AWRP since 2008 and have always been concerned that the project would not be viable because of the reliance on forecasts of events almost 30 years hence. The parish councils closest to the project have put thousands of hours into understanding the issues. Not because we are a NIMBY group, we have never opposed locating a waste facility at Allerton Park, but because of concerns affecting the whole of the county. We've consistently opposed the most expensive part of the scheme, the energy from waste incinerator, partly because it is not without some risks to health and the environment, but mainly because there are other less costly and more flexible options available. It is the EFW that forces the council into a very expensive and exceedingly long contract. The report before you says that the length of the contract provides assurances over cost. We believe that the very length of the deal creates unpredictability and risk. The forecast savings when the full council gave the initial go-ahead in December 2010 were £324 million. Less than 4 years later, that forecast has been revised downwards by almost 2/3 in nominal terms. When you apply net present value to the savings, the benefit of AWRP alone to NYCC is just £11 million, and only rises to what is still a marginal gain of £20 million if the unproven Tackle Your Waste commercial and industrial scheme succeeds. Given the very significant reduction in forecasts in fewer than 4 years, it seems very unwise to rely on the latest forecasts covering 30+ years hence. They are extremely fragile, and the officer's report recognises that AWRP becomes loss-making when they apply sensitivities such as a 0.5% shift in inflation. The proxy case against which you are being invited to judge AWRP is based on officers' best guesses of future landfill tax, inflation, exchange rates, recycling rates, and most importantly, waste volumes over the next 30 years. Even if these forecasts prove accurate, the report before you states that AWRP will lose money for 7 or 8 years, costing more than 32 million than existing disposal methods over that period, and it won't break even for another 15. Any significant savings will not occur, if ever, until the last 5 years of the contract. These are so far in the future that they are not reliable, and therefore the risk of signing up is simply not worth taking. My question is, will you delay this decision until officers produce a report that compares AWRP costs with the alternatives, including facilities outside of the county? Thank you.
Thank you. If I can invite Mr. Laurie Boyle. Mr. Whelan. Sorry, yeah.
NYC. Fellow residents of North Yorkshire, the proposal before you is to commit, with the City of York Council, £1.4 billion over 25 years in order to achieve a net present value benefit of only 17 million from Allerton. It is not sound. For NYCC, the MPV benefit figure from Allerton is only £11 million. Adding the benefit of the unproven Teckle scheme, it is only 20 million. Against this, in the first 7 years of operation, it is £32 million more expensive than our current methods of waste disposal. It does not break even for 15 years. It does not look a good deal. It is a Yorkshire characteristic to be careful with money. But the executive are gambling with our money on a dubious contract with uncertain results over a very long period. In the future, if this contract is investigated on the grounds of recklessness and negligence, will the members say, we trusted our advisors and just followed orders? Over the last 2 years, we've been assured by various councillors that Allerton would not go ahead unless a thorough, independent, value-for-money exercise showed it to be viable. And this would include comparison of the costs of Allerton against other options for dealing with the county's waste. Officers have produced no such comparisons. At the executive meeting last week, officers confirmed they had not costed alternative solutions, so they have no real commercial numbers to compare against Allerton. Further, they conceded they had never considered anything other than Allerton, and have merely used a theoretical proxy case to show value for money. In our view, they have manipulated numbers to prove Allerton viable. This sounds less like transparency and more like a cover-up. The officer's theoretical proxy case assumes that the only alternative is landfill. This is not true. You know that landfill is not the only option. You might expect a Rolls-Royce solution for all the money. Instead, we're getting an old model diesel van, dirty and outdated, instead of a new Audi. Officers could not answer the question, at what percentage volume shortfall are all the savings lost and the project loses money? To rely on such untested theoretical case to justify a locked-in 25-year billion-pound commitment for an uncertain and negligible return is neither responsible nor prudent. This is why we ask you not to support the proposal today. My question is, would you rather have £32 million over the next few years, which will provide real services and real jobs now, or invest in a project which will not break even for 15 years?
Thank you very much. Miss Bob Singleton, please.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Bob Singleton. For many years now, I have closely followed the development of the proposal for AWRP, and I would like to put forward what I firmly believe would be the views of the council taxpayers of North Yorkshire if they were aware of the details of this proposal. I spent my whole working life in IT, an extremely high-tech industry. None of my customers, large or small, would ever have considered entering into a long-term contract based upon a fixed technology without first undertaking a detailed comparative evaluation of every possible alternative option open to them. Naturally, this evaluation would have included value for money, affordability, return on investment, cost-benefits analysis, and the future-proofing of the technology. In the IT industry, a long-term contract is considered as anything greater than 5 years. Waste management is also a high-tech industry. And yet here we have a proposal to commit a huge sum of money over an incredible 25-year period with no such detailed analysis of alternative options. Surely the responsibility for obtaining the best possible outcome for taxpayers demands that this in-depth analysis be undertaken. The proxy used as a comparison with AWRP costs is based fundamentally upon landfill only, and this has resulted in a fragile model against which the project loses money, 32 million compared with current methods over the first 7 or 8 years. Supposedly identified benefits over the full contractual term are highly questionable as a result of the potentially disastrous effect of even minor fluctuations in major criteria such as recycle rates, inflation and exchange rates. Furthermore, the proposed AWRP contract would result in North Yorkshire County Council being locked into ageing technology for 25 years. AWRP is a massive gamble and the risk is simply enormous. Need that risk be taken at this point? Officers and executives have constantly displayed a must-do-something-now mindset, yet this attitude is neither logical nor necessary. The report before you confirms that there are sufficient and less costly alternatives to AWRP for the next 5 to 7 years, and they do not have to be landfill. The Council therefore has a 5 to 7 year breathing space in which to save money up to 32 million, whilst at the same time carrying out a thorough analysis of available options, including new and expanding facilities on Teesside, the energy from waste facility at Ferry Bridge, where capacity will reach 600,000 tonnes, expanding Todd's material recovery facility in Malton, Wade's at Newton Aycliffe, installing mechanical biological treatment facility at Allerton.
Thank you very much. That's your time up, please, now. Thank you.
My question is, will you vote against this proposal and continue to use existing facilities for the next 3 to 5 years, saving millions of pounds of taxpayers' money and allowing time to fully evaluate alternatives and develop a system based around available and improving facilities around the county? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Laurie Boyle, please.
The name's Laurie Boyle. I have lived in this county for 33 years, and before retiring, I was trading and commercial director at Asda. Less than 4 years ago, in 2010, this council agreed to the AWRP based on a forecast that it would save £324 million. And this was compared to a do-nothing of continuing to exist with landfill. We argued at the time that this was unrealistic. We argued that it was overstated. So just remember that figure. £324 million was the figure that you based your decision on. Before the ink was dry, by August 2011, just 8 months later, this figure had been revised by your officers downwards to £226 million, down £98 million, which we again said was unrealistic and overstated. And in February 2013, 18 months later, this was revised down again by officers to £109 million. Not 324, 109. So in less than 3 years, the so-called savings had reduced by £215 million, and were now a third of the original figure. And if we now use the officers' latest figures and apply the accepted measure of a long-term investment, known as net present value, they come in at just £17 million, and if we take out the city of York, what you're left with in this county is just £11 million, not 324, councillors, 11. Now bear in mind, I'm not making these figures up, these are your figures. They're produced by your officers, and they relate to what is now called a market proxy comparison, which looks very much like the old do-nothing theoretical landfill cost, the only benchmark that they have used, and a very convenient benchmark and a very fragile benchmark. In fact, the most fragile benchmark that I've ever seen in the 30 years that I've worked in business. Even this paltry saving, so-called, of £11 million, which a cynic might well think is still financially engineered, is highly risky. For example, you've already heard, a marginal move on inflation alone of just 0.5% will completely wipe out whatever saving you're currently claiming. And there are other risks of a similar ilk which give you substantial risk, because they will take away, they're outside of your control, but they'll take away any profit that you think you're going to make out of this scheme. So my question, councillors, is this. How can we have any confidence at all in the forecast or predictions from the very same officers for the next 28 to 33 years when their figures have been so wrong based on the last 4 years?
Thank you very
Why
much.
should you even contemplate taking this unnecessary risk when you don't have to take it? Because you really don't have to take it, and the financial rewards do not compensate for the very high risk that you're taking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brian Cooper, please.
I speak for Martin Grafton Parish Council. You will have read the seminar papers, the officers' report, and the minutes of the executive meeting. The following points are all taken from those documents. They summarise the situation. The report claims a net present value for the AWRP of only £11 million for NYCC. To try to reach an acceptable level, officers add speculative benefits of £9 million from the untested Your Waste Teco scheme and £10 million from the residual value of a 30-year-old obsolete plant. Officers say the project is affordable, but admit that it is underpinned by the PIP, which has been fed with money from cuts to staff and services. For the next 7 years, the AWRP would cost £32 million more than current disposal. It would not make savings until 2032. The guaranteed minimum tonnage below which penalties are triggered may not be met without winning commercial and industrial waste against stiff competition. Officers did not know what percentage waste shortfall the project would fall into loss. They admit that they have never evaluated anything other than AWRP. They merely used a theoretical proxy to prove it viable. There is no independent value for money analysis. There is no parent company guarantee. It leaves you with the risk. The AWRP would take 3 years to build. It would not break even until 18 years from now. Officers say there is enough less costly treatment capacity without landfill for 10 years, allowing time to seek better alternatives. This would take only 3 to 5 years. It would avoid ARP costs of £32 million, thus reducing pressure on your budgets at a time of severe financial constraints. If you think about these points, you will realise that there is no urgent need to approve the AWRP today. The possibility of uncertain savings in 20 years' time does not justify the extra costs in the medium term and the huge risk. But you do not have to take this risk because this council and York City can cancel for a shared cost of only £5 million, which would be recovered in the first year. My question, therefore, is, Amy Cesper's long delay in producing a financial package after HM Treasury withdrew PFI credits 3 years ago suggests that others, including the original list of lenders, regard the project as too risky. Why does the council believe it should saddle ratepayers with this risk?
Thank you very much. Mr. John West, please. Is there a Mr. John West? Are you all right standing, sir, or would you like a seat?
Thank you for your concern. I'm fine, thank you. Good. If I fall, just... Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. John West from the small village of Coneythorpe, Clareton. Today you're being asked to allow this project to go forward to financial closure, as laid out by your executive. The final stage in committing this county to a 25-year contract, costing immense sums of money, based upon highly sensitive and volatile factors, and yet still having only considered a single option. In December 2010, you voted to go forward with this project based upon the business case were presented to you at the time by your executive. The headline figures of £320 million saving against continuing to landfill. This figure, coupled with a carrot of 65 million of PFI credit, was enough to convince you all that your office and executives had carried out an efficient, forward-thinking and bold move in solving our long-term waste issues. I'll be honest with you, at that time, I didn't really know that much about it. And I too was impressed, and without knowing anything, I thought, well done, a bold, decisive and a courageous decision made by you all. As the development was going to be on my doorstep, I joined the community liaison group set up by the proposed contractor to understand more and hopefully contribute. It was at this point I started to understand more, and in a very short time I'd researched a huge amount of detailed information about black bag waste and the many and varied methods of treatment. I'd subscribed to all the waste and recycling trade journals, investigate the financial markets, spent time visiting a working incinerator plant in Sheffield, where my business is. My eyes were really opened by these visits, and I started genuinely to seriously question the executive's business case. I learned from Sheffield that they couldn't get enough waste and had to go back to planning as they had miscalculated their waste volumes. Not once, but 3 times at the last count. Why didn't Allerton use the heat output as Sheffield did? And most other EFW projects did? Why even site it where there was no uptake for heat? Why truck the waste all over the largest county in the country to a single point? Why not localise it? Why burn it at all? There's so many alternatives. Why only one option? Why were the banks pouring billions, and I mean billions, into long-term incinerator projects across the UK? Commitment to our environment or financial gain? Was the business case really that efficient, bold and decisive as I first thought? I think not. Ladies and gentlemen, there are so many unanswered questions. In just 3.5 years, your own executive's headline figures have dropped from 320 to 130 million. A drop of nearly 200 million pounds. Still, they only compare against the do-nothing of landfill, and yet they still wish to commit this county to 25 years.
Time is up, please. Do you want to ask your question before you leave, and then...
Certainly. As you're aware, I don't understand procedures. Without having knowledge of the procedures, can I, as a member of the public, propose an amendment to this meeting that due to the window of opportunity available now and for the next 7, 8 years, the members move to defer any decision until the business case is fully completed. Thank you for your time.
Could I now ask Dr. Ferguson to come on behalf of Nigel Adams, please?
Good afternoon. My name's Howard Ferguson, and I am here speaking on behalf of Nigel Adams, and will read out his statement to you. The energy market and the waste disposal market are both going through a period of transition. This transition is being encouraged by government. This encouragement is in the form of incentives for new technologies and taxation to encourage migration from traditional carbon-based generation and landfill. However, this is a 1.4 billion project over 25 years with a minimal 11 million net present value and carries with it a greater risk than government was prepared to take via the original PFI proposal. Members will be fully aware that the government decided not to support the project via PFI. Market for energy from waste and waste incineration is currently attractive to commercial operators via the incentives to cut landfill and for heat. There's a strong likelihood that this will create overcapacity, leading to falling prices for the processes. the positive returns from the Allerton Park project could very easily become negative should this occur. Such commercial risks should be taken by commercial operators who can spread the risk over many projects and different technologies. This project is of such a scale that North Yorkshire would potentially have to cut other services if this project fails to deliver on its financial projections. An 11 million NPV depends critically on delivery to timescales. This project is of high profile. We know this from the petition that had over 10,000 signatures. Any potential cut in services that could be forced by this project could seriously undermine public confidence in North Yorkshire County Council. The questions that I'd like to ask you to ask yourselves before voting on the matter are: what are the risks to services if the project does not deliver the projected returns and there is slippage? And how would this impact on the long-term financial strength of North Yorkshire County Council and its services? The second question I would like to ask is, why would you go ahead with such risks when there are competing commercial operators in the market who are prepared to take the risk without exposing North Yorkshire ratepayers? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I call on County Councillor Chris Metcalfe to respond, please? Thank you.